Hi, welcome to Nora Christine Live. We have Gray Mars here from the new party, and we have a very, very special guest. Kylie. Kylie is a relationship coach, and she just shared something really fun and exciting with me. USA Today actually has her speaking on her history as a relationship coach and her being able to talk on the whole Diddy situation. Kylie, tell me about what they asked you about, and tell me everyone about your history. May have seen her previously on our Man Cave show, so it's very excited to have her again.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kylie, and I am a relationship coach. And I specialize in non monogamy, which encompasses the swinger lifestyle. Me and my ex were actually in the swinger lifestyle for 5+ years. I'm now polyamorous, but we have a lot of experience within the lifestyle ourselves. And on top of that, I have a lot of experience with advocacy groups like, the National Coalition for Sexual Freedom. And essentially, what we do is we destigmatize non monogamy and kink. So I have a lot of education and experience. So USA Today reached out to me because they wanted to ask me some questions about the Diddy trial that is currently ongoing as we speak. And I think that it's really important to have these conversations, not just within, our country, in the USA, but all over, the globe, because it brings up a lot of questions about power dynamics and kink and swinging and all of that. So yes.
I'm so excited. It was a perfect day. So Kylie saw like we've been covering the Diddy trial. She was like, "Hey, I want to come on." And then we're like, "Hey, can you come on today?" And it just worked out perfect.
Yeah.
And I finally get to meet her. So I'm just excited. So Kylie's gonna give her take. We're gonna give you guys live updates like we have been. So that's not changing. But it's even better today because now you have someone really in the lifestyle. Before we give the live updates, Kylie, tell me what you think so far of the Diddy trial, and from your experience as a swinger, what do you think is going on right now?
So when all of this came out, and I want to say this was like back last year, maybe in the summer or maybe in the fall, when what all was going on, I knew that swinging was going to come into this, and I knew this because I saw a video on TikTok, and there was a pineapple in one of the videos, and all the commenters were like, "Oh, look at the pineapple. We knew that this, they're going to call it swinging. They're going to say swinging." So when this came out, that essentially what's happening is his defense is using swinging and kink and saying this was adult freaky fun. And so I just knew that this was going to be a thing. And it disgusted me, to be completely
Mhm,
honest, because I've been a swinger, like I said, for 5 years. I've been in this lifestyle, and me and my partner have never seen the things that we have heard about in this trial: the drugs,
mhm,
the prostitution, which I'm
mhm,
also a sex worker, so I have no issue with anybody who's a legal sex worker or anything like that. But I'm just saying that it goes way beyond the swinger and the kink lifestyle, and
mhm,
it's abuse, and the concern, well, alleged abuse, but the concern here for me and my community
mhm,
is that we've done so much work to destigmatize this consensual lifestyle, and now powerful men are using it as a scapegoat. And this is
mhm,
not the first time that somebody has done this, in recent years.
mhm,
Last year, there was a big case in France, the Giselle Pellicot situation. And I don't
mm,
know
mhm.
if you remember hearing about that, but
A
um,
little bit, yeah.
yeah. So, and the husband, who was essentially drugging and having men come over and abuse his wife for
Mm,
years, and getting this on camera non-consensually, used swinging in his defense as well, which this was not swinging, because again, no, she wasn't consenting to this. It sounds to me, based on the cross examination this morning, that there may have been some form of coercion and manipulation
mm,
involved, and that maybe at some point, Cassie did consent to some of it, but not all of
mhm.
it. So, but the concern here is the cultural understanding around non monogamy and swinging, I think.
Gray, are you in agreement with what she's saying? Do you think it was consensual? Do you believe that? from everything we've heard so far from the first 2 days?
Um, I think what Kylie's saying is basically like that Diddy's making swinging look bad. I know with
Mhm,
swinging that it has a lot of different forms of what people do. I know like full swap is like anything goes. Soft swap is like you guys are just hanging out and one person does with their partner. And so what I would more so describe what Diddy is doing, it sounds like he was in the words of Kanye, a cuckold. Am I able to say that on here?
I
Um,
think so.
yeah.
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 So,
Yeah,
go
that's
ahead.
exactly right. Yeah.
So I mean, like, I feel like it's a little bit different, and I feel like that's why Diddy had the control because he was getting pleasure from seeing Cassie
Mhm,
with other guys. So I do feel like labeling it as swinging is a bit of a stretch if you're
mhm.
just doing it for your own self gratification and the woman's not getting any pleasure from
Well, I have a unique take, guys. I'm probably gonna be the one person in the room bashing on Cassie today, and I'm sorry, I'm a stand fold on it because she got $20 million, and here she is still and I think she signed a non-disclose, and she's still able to speak out. But that's neither here nor there. My thing is, it comes a point as a woman where I do believe you walk away. Her career wasn't that jumping. She tries to say that Diddy was holding this over her head. I look at her resume, she really wasn't working like that. She also cheated on her boyfriend when she met Diddy, cheated on him multiple times with what's that guy's name? I keep forgetting his name, Gray.
who
The one whose car he blew up.
Kid Cudi.
Kid Cudi, I don't know why I forget that dude's name. With him, I also believe she had something going on with Drake, which is why he got mad about the OVO EXO concert. I found out something from academics yesterday when I was listening to his show. So my sympathy is very small. The guy who she's currently with, she cheated on Diddy with, left him to go be with him. I don't believe she was an unwilling participant in majority of this. I will say there probably were moments. Am I doubting that he may have raped her that one night? No, I'm not doubting that. I'm not putting nothing past him because we see there is a history of violence with this guy because she's one of many that have come out. But I don't think she was just this innocent victim that didn't enjoy some of this. I think she enjoyed some of it. I mean, hundreds of times and 30, I mean, over 30 men at least. I don't think it was all this victim. I don't, and I believe she also another thing, the drug use, because people are trying to say he got her hooked on drugs. He walked in on her using drugs with her friend. So she was using it even outside of the freak offs, even outside of being with him. So I struggle. I don't see her as this full victim. That's what I struggle with, to be honest with you. And I'm kind of glad that the defense is poking holes now because if this is the best uh, victim that they have, me personally as a juror, I would say he's not guilty. If this is the best that they're going to have her, and none of the things that she was involved in, they're charging him with, by the way. They're basically doing this, I feel, as a character assassination on Diddy's character. And again, do I think he's a victim? No, but I don't think that Cassie is the person that should be who they're saying he victimized. I just don't see it. I really don't.
So I want to talk a little bit about power dynamics because you bring up a good point. And I'm 33, oh, sorry, 34. And I remember P. Diddy was everywhere, right? Like I'm a millennial.
Hmm.
He was everywhere at the time that they were dating. She was a young 21-year-old. Her
True.
music was just getting popular. I remember those songs. Me and my friends danced to that. All of her songs. We loved it, right? So, knowing this, that this man, there was a huge imbalance of power because he was like running the music industry at the time. So he used that balance of power. There was no balance. He used that imbalance to influence her right into
Hmm.
these acts, and that is my 1000% belief. When I go to a swinger party, because I have a power dynamic over everyone, because I
Hmm.
am on social media, people know me, I have a podcast. If I have a microphone in my hand, I don't sleep with any of those people, right? Like I usually don't even play when I go to a swinger or a kink party because I
Hmm.
know that I hold a power dynamic, right? So there
Hmm.
has to
Hmm.
very clear, enthusiastic consent, ongoing consent. And what it sounds
Hmm.
like me is that the consent was not ongoing, and that it wasn't enthusiastic, and that there were drugs involved. And then on top of that, him being so powerful. I mean, think back to the time period. He was
Mhm.
everywhere, making the band, MTV, all everywhere. You couldn't turn on your television, you couldn't turn on MTV without Diddy being on TV. And so, like,
Mhm.
this is the other thing that we need to really consider is like, yes, maybe she was a willing participant in some of them, but there was a huge power imbalance here.
Gray, you agree?
Yeah, and we were talking about this yesterday, like, and I seen somebody because everybody's talking about this on social media that
Mhm.
people. One person said when a person's in an abusive relationship, we say, "Oh, that's just a relationship." When a person goes to work, they use work as an example. They say, "Oh, you should leave this job. This job is so horrible, but you have to work." Like we give excuses, but when it comes to SA victims, it's like we completely turn a blind eye. Now, I'm not saying that Cassie wasn't a willing participant or that Cassie didn't enjoy what was going on. But I'm also saying that she had an incentive to get what she wanted, so she did what
Right.
she do. Like how Kylie just said, I go to these parties. I'm a
Mhm.
social media influencer. These people know who I am, so people are paying attention. So people may do something additional to get
Mhm.
someone's attention who has power, like she said, the
Mhm.
power dynamics, because that's what's appealing, that's what's attractive.
Hmm.
Yeah, facts. Guys, we have almost 200 people watching right now. I need everybody to hit the like button wherever you're watching. Please hit the like button. If you're not already subscribing, please go subscribe to us on our YouTube page at The New Party, and give Kylie a subscription as well. Kylie, how can they find you on TikTok for those that are watching?
You can find me at Sexy Polly Chick on formerly known as Sexy Swinger Chick. So if you look up either of those, you'll find me. And then I'm also on Instagram at the Pineapple Express Podcast.
So definitely go check it out. We're also going to be taking calls if you guys want to ask Kylie some questions. 407-602-8114. Again, 407-602-8114. So we're going to get into some of the updates from today. So for everyone that may or may not know, the state, the federal defense, the federal team, the prosecutors led the questioning the last 2 days. Today, the defense, Diddy's team, is taking over. Now, today we learned that she occasionally watched him have sex with other women and that it happened between 2 and 4 times. It happened, but not often. Watching him with other women frequently enough. Combs lawyer, Anna, suggested that the freak offs were simply part of Combs' swinger lifestyle. But Ventura responded that while a swinger's lifestyle is related to freak offs in a sexual way, the two concepts were actually very different. So my question is, what is the difference, Kylie? I've never heard this term freak off. I've heard of swingers, but is this a popular term or is this a Diddy term? I don't get it.
This is a Diddy term. I've never heard of a freak off before. But what I can say, and kind of to go back to what Gray was saying, so cuckolding is something that is frequently done at swinger and sex clubs. I myself, when I was with my partner, I was a cuck queen. So that means that I like to
Mm,
watch him with other women, which is kind of what Cassie is talking about here. So it is something that is it's very common in the swinger lifestyle. But I've never heard of a freak off before where there's like, now we do events, and some days those events will go on for 4 or 5 days, but that doesn't mean that we're like
mm,
constantly like having crazy sex the whole time. There's pool parties and we're socializing because at
mhm,
its core, the swinger community is truly about community and socializing
mhm.
and enjoying each other and enjoying each other's company in the bedroom or outside of the bedroom. There's been tons of events where I've known people who they don't play, they just go for the fun, they go for the
What
um,
does play mean for those that don't know?
play means like sex. So then
Okay.
again, back to what Gray was saying, like soft swapping, full swapping, cuck holding. There's some people who go to events and they'll do some kink. So usually it's light kink, or as I call it, pleasure kink. So maybe a little bit of like wax play or light BDSM, nothing too
Mhm.
crazy, not where it's abusive or anything like that, like what they were
Okay.
talking about at the Diddy trials. But
I
yeah,
got another question, Kylie.
yes.
Another thing that was really weird that came out. They said that she was okay with the guy ejaculating into her. He would then go take the ejaculation out and rub it on his chest. Is that normal or is this something a Diddy thing?
So for me to say if it's normal or not, I mean, I think that like we all have different kinks,
Kinks.
different things
Mhm.
that we're into. It is quite common though for a cuckold to either like, this is a little graphic, but to like suck the ejaculation out of the wife, or for things like this to happen. Like it is common. I'm not
Okay.
going to say that it's abnormal, but I'm not going to say that it's
Okay.
something that I've experienced. But yeah.
I got a question,
And
Kylie.
yeah, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
We're not on TikTok, so I'll just use the regular word. So with Diddy, it was a lot of drugs involved, and like I know certain things like and different drugs intensify, physical
Mhm.
interactions. So in the swinger community, is this something that's open, or is this like something that's underground, like, or is this prevalent in group sessions?
So I will say that most big clubs and most events will not, like, if you're caught using any sort of drugs, or if you're caught with drugs on you, like, you will be kicked out of the resort, you'll be kicked out of the club.
Really?
Yeah, even like in my
Huh.
state, weed is legal, and like if you're caught with weed at the club that I used to frequently go to, like even though it's legal, you'll still be kicked out, just because like it's not a very common practice. Am I here to tell you that I've never seen anybody take some Molly and then like go and have a fuck session? No, I'm not going to tell you that that's never happened, because it does. Like,
Mhm.
have I done that in the past? Yes. Like
Okay.
it does enhance. But I also think that like swinger culture, now that we have a lot of like younger people joining, so we have Gen Zers, millennials joining, it's kind of turning more into a rave culture now, but not at the time period when all of this was going on with Diddy. I think that the high use of drugs at his parties is what sets it apart. That it Because in the swinger lifestyle, it's just not common practice. Does it happen? Yeah, but it happens in every community.
True.
My other question is, do you think this relationship was ever loving? Do you think he ever loved her, or do you think he used her as a toy, basically? I mean, because that I don't think he ever loved her. I will say that. What are your thoughts? Do you think it's possible to do it this many times and be in a loving relationship?
I think that when you do have these sort of relationships, specifically
Mhm.
we're speaking on like swinging and the kink community and all of that, there has to be a lot of communication. There has to be
Mhm.
a really, really good foundation where two people are, actively communicating and talking constantly. And it sounds to me like and especially with the age difference, like that's the other thing that we haven't really talked about. He was 17 years older than her. He was in
True.
his 30s when this was going on, his late 30s, and she was in her early 20s. And I'm 34. That would be like me dating somebody in their early 20s. Like that, I would never do that, because again, this adds more to the power dynamic. So I do kind of, yeah, Nora, I think that it was sort of like she was at first probably more willing, more of a willing participant, and it kind of just got used to his advantage, and that's
Mhm.
unfortunate.
Oh,
Yeah,
man. Yeah,
I
go ahead,
think
honey.
I think that with a man with Diddy, because kind of the thing that you commented on was when I said that she got upset because Diddy said Kim Porter was his soulmate. And I think in Cassie's mind, and with a lot of men, if a woman is doing this, doing fantasy, allowing you to have fantasies that you want, you're most likely going to be more attached to that person because this person is doing a sacrifice that a good portion of women won't do. So you're like, this person's allowing me to have other partners. So I feel like that's a part of why Cassie was so offended with his affinity for Kim Porter, because she did these acts so that Diddy could be happy.
Exact No, you're right, you're right. And we have a question, Dark Ken, who's one of our fans. He said, "Can you join the swinger person at swinger community as a single person?"
So I will say that I'm assuming that their gender is male because he said
Yes.
just women only. So unfortunately, a lot of clubs and events have a vetting process specifically for
Mhm.
single men. So you do have to be vetted in by other couples. But it is something that is common, they're just like what Diddy was practicing, having single men come, those are called bulls. So having them come to the parties and, be able to watch your partner with them. So there is a place for single men, but unfortunately, there is an overabundance of single men because a lot of them come into the lifestyle believing that like they're going to walk into these swinger clubs and everyone's just going to drop their pants and get on their knees and say, "Please, baby, I want you so bad," which is like never the case because being a cuckold or being a hot wife is a very like niche thing in the swinger community. There's a lot of couple swapping, or people are looking for single women because a lot of the wives are bisexual. So if people
True.
think that they're just going to come into the swinger lifestyle as single men and like everyone's just going to beg for them, that's really not the case. You're better off going on Tinder and finding and dating women in a regular way than like joining the lifestyle, to be
Well,
honest.
I've been on Tinder and I've seen people looking for couples looking for single people. So
Hmm.
it is out there.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
haven't personally talked to them, but I've seen that, when you're swiping, you see it, or even on Bumble, you even see it there sometimes. Um, Gray, you have another question before I give another update?
No, I think Kylie has been very informative. So a hot wife is just someone that was a hot wife.
So a hot wife is a wife of the couple, and she plays with men, whether it's like in front of her husband and her husband doesn't join. So like there's no swapping, there's no threesomes. He's usually like watching, or sometimes like she'll go on dates, which is probably why Nora's talking about, people looking for single males, or like she'll talk about it with her husband or give updates like over the phone or FaceTime him like, "Hey, we're doing this or that." So I would definitely say there's hot wives, there's hot husbands. Hot husbands do the same thing. So people do really enjoy this sort of like hot husbanding, hot wifing, cuck holding, cuck queening. There's a lot of people in the lifestyle who enjoy that.
So I did have a question that is a good question too. So Diddy was trying to pressure Cassie to go to swinger clubs. So have you seen any celebrities, or you have to say if you've seen
That's a
anybody,
good one.
but say their name. But have you seen celebrities or anybody like with a sense a big reputation or famous or anything at any of these events?
That's funny. No, I haven't. I do know that like I've heard stories about celebrities being at like the bigger swinger events. And
Mhm.
I've heard of different celebrities maybe being in the lifestyle. I think it would be really difficult for a swinger to go. Even like me, I have like maybe 100. I have 100,000 followers on TikTok and 100,000 on Instagram, and even I still have a hard time. Like it's kind of overwhelming with just like people asking you
Well,
questions and stuff like that.
she
So
claims that they went to swinger clubs and they were having sex in the clubs.
it's very possible, especially because they're in New York City, and New
I
York
think it was like
City.
Miami too, even she named out. Yeah.
So like New York City, Miami, like bigger cities do have an abundance of swinger clubs. And I'm
Mhm.
sure that like obviously he has enough money, like he can shut it down and probably get the right people that he wants there. I mean, if
Right.
if you have the money, you can do whatever you want. But like, is it a normal occurrence? No, not really,
No.
unfortunately.
Okay. Um, The thing that came out today is text messages came out. Um, I'm always ready to freak off, she wrote in a 2009 text message. Roughly 2 years into their relationship, she was in her early 20s, he was in his early 40s. So there were messages that show she was telling him to set it up. Do you think that changes anything for you with that coming out, or do you think that still shows? I understand the power dynamic, but it shows at least, in writing that she's saying she wants to do it.
For me, no, it doesn't change anything because again, psychological manipulation. I've been in relationships where I would have done anything for my partner because there was some form of maybe like emotional abuse going on. And I don't think it changes anything for me just because she also talks about how he used threats and gaslighting, and maybe at
Mhm.
the time, like he wasn't showing her attention or affection. And the only time that he was showing her attention and affection was at these freak offs. So she felt like she needed to, be this like this girlfriend who really really wanted it. But I don't necessarily think that that means that she was really into it, because again, we're dealing with psychological manipulation.
Mm,
Makes sense.
yeah, got you. Yeah, I mean, the texts today just show it like in the beginning, I guess, and these are all early text messages, so I don't think that's fair. It shows a loving relationship with them. At what point does it go from love to abuse, in your opinion, Kylie, from your experience doing this?
So I think the point that it goes from love to abuse is when somebody is not ongoing or enthusiastically consenting. If somebody's saying, no, I don't want to do this anymore. No, like, I don't like this. That's when it really starts to become abusive. And I think that, like, when people are being coerced into this as well. And so, like, I can say that in the beginning of a relationship, for something like this to come out, especially the text messages, that these were early on in their relationship, right? Like, you have something called new relationship energy. It is a real thing, guys. It's where your brain is literally on drugs. Okay. They've done brain scans of people in new relationships, and it shows the exact, centers and receptors of like when you're on certain
Mhm.
drugs. So you might say yes to things that you wouldn't necessarily say yes to. This is why a lot of people like myself will say, don't make any financial decisions, within the first 7 months to a year. Don't like move in with a partner. Don't have kids with a partner that early on. Don't get married, because your brain is literally on drugs. And like the
Mm.
drugs aside, like this is just the new relationship energy. So that could have also played a factor into this as well.
So Kylie, I actually heard someone I was in a relationship with before. They told me they were addicted to the newness. Like they liked the newness of meeting somebody. So as a relationship coach, what would be your advice to someone, even Diddy, if you're someone that likes freak offs, likes to swing, and you're into this stuff, but your partner's no longer interested, but you want to stay in the relationship?
I would say that, if you want to stay in that relationship, you have to abide by the relationship agreement. If the relationship agreement is like one partner is not enthusiastically consenting to this, then that's where you need to make the decision. Am I going to take swinging and kink, or am I going to choose my partner? Because you can't have your cake and you can't eat it too. That's just not the way that the world works. Like, if you're in a relationship with somebody, like, those agreements, whatever it is, whether it's your partner not liking women on social media or your partner not watching porn, if that's a part of your relationship agreement and that's considered cheating in that specific relationship, then you need to abide by that agreement, right? So if somebody and people ask me this all the time, like, if me and my partner, when I was swinging, if he would have like wanted to stop swinging, what would I have done? And I always would say, once you open up that can of worms, it's kind of hard to put those worms back in the can. But if, me and my partner, when it came to our relationship, he always came first. And this was back when we were swinging. So I do think that that's a hard decision to make, but you would have to decide between your partner or between your lifestyle.
Right. I think that's where Diddy messed up, that he should have just ended it when she wanted it to end. I don't know if they had that conversation, but maybe she was fine with it in the beginning. And then it came to a point where she was just like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And I have a question. Wh I mean, why like, I've had a UTI before, and I've had, I've never had mouth sores, but I can imagine, like, why would she still do that? Like, that to me is where I do have sympathy for her. It's so painful to even pee sometimes on a UTI. How did she do this? I mean, and how is this even enjoyable for the other person is my question. So my question is this: have you ever been with someone or heard of or had conversations with people where they've suspected the other person had a STD? Why would is that like normal? Like to me, it's like, come on now. You kind of like sometimes know on both, when something's off. And how would this person have still been able to perform? Like was going through my mind when she said all that.
Yeah, and for me, that just further tells us that there was manipulation at play because, like, again, like I've also had a UTI, and like
Mhm.
that, you don't even want to get out of bed sometimes. Like, it's
No.
very painful, let alone stick anything anywhere.
Yeah.
So definitely, like, I think that is it common in the swinger lifestyle for people to like go have UTIs and have mouth sores and have, STIs? Is there a big prevalence? No. And I think that we spoke about this
Mm.
on the last podcast that I was on, because this is
Mhm.
a common question that people have is like, how do you not get STIs? And it's like, well, how do people who are dating not get STIs? Like,
Use protection.
use
But it
protection.
doesn't sound like they were using protection though, Kylie. That to me, she really needs to count her lucky stars if she doesn't have anything permanent. That stood out to me and I felt really sad for her in that regard because I mean, I don't know anyone that would want their partner sleeping with someone uh, knowingly unprotected when you know what I mean? Like that
Yeah.
is that like a common thing or is it common to use protection?
It's way more common to use protection, especially like now, 2025 swingers. A lot of us are millennials and Gen Zers.
Mhm.
Over 55 or 56% are millennials. And like we had decent, not great, sex education, more so than like in years
Right.
prior. And I think that like
Right.
some of the swingers who have been in the lifestyle and now they're in their 50s and 60s probably have less of a prevalence using protection from what I've seen in the studies that they've done. And they have done studies on this, and it's kind of like, mixed reviews, right? Like some of the studies say that there's less of a prevalence, some say that there's more of a prevalence. I think anytime that you're having any sort of risky behavior when it comes to sex, whether that be if you're a single person and you're on Tinder and you're swiping right every night and you're meeting some new person out at the bar every night, right? Like, and then you're taking them home and having sex with them, like use protection. If you're
Right.
at the swinger club and you're in a 12-person orgy, like use protection, right? Because that's how we keep our friends safe and that's how we keep our communities safe. And, it's just the right thing to do for the community itself. And so like them not using protection also shows me that like I don't believe that this was swinging,
Right.
Mm.
especially with sex workers, which again, I'm not saying that sex workers are, that there's anything that they have a higher prevalence of STIs or anything like that. But what I'm saying is that person, they could have been with five other people that day. And if they're not using protection with you, they're not using protection with those other people, right? So like alarm bells should be going off right now, especially knowing what their job is, right?
Right. And I like that you said that they were sex workers, Kylie, because well, we know that Diddy's trainer and Cassie's trainer, who's now Cassie's husband
Husband.
and going to be the
Mhm.
father of her child. So we don't have any evidence that he participated in freak offs or cuckolded or anything with them. But the fact that he knew Diddy and then he ended up marrying Cassie, is there an issue in the swinging community where there's physical intimacy and then emotions develop?
Yes, because we're humans and we get emotions and we love people and we love our friends. I've seen a lot of my friends who have met couples, fell in love with those couples and then became quads with them. And it's worked out great for some of them and it's not worked out for some of them, right? But usually when people leave their spouse and I'm speaking specifically on, in the swinger lifestyle, usually when people leave their spouse, it's not because of the sex and the emotions that you're having with other people. Usually there's other holes that are being magnified when you get into this lifestyle. And I think that sometimes people think that the grass is greener on the other side, and that's not always necessarily the case. Sometimes it is, sometimes, but in monogamous relationships, like you could go to work and the new guy at the office could like just be that one for you, right? And you can leave your partner. So like, does it mean that swinging is the reason why? And like maybe she met this person in the swinger lifestyle um while they were doing these freak offs and that's what happened. It's not always necessarily because of being intimate with somebody else and getting emotions for them, because again, this happens way more frequently in monogamous relationships.
I can agree with that. I feel like in swinging type relationships, probably better open communication. You can be
Mhm.
more honest because you don't feel like you're walking on eggshells.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And for some reason, he didn't trust her, but because this seems to be something that I'm reading is being brought up. But when she met him, she was in a relationship. She left him for the trainer. I mean, like, trust is a big thing. How do you make sure that you trust your partner when you're going into this?
You openly communicate, just like Grace said, open communication is huge, and being able to have a safe space to talk with your partner and open up and say, hey, I'm developing feelings for this person. How are we going to move forward with this? Right. And that's why I always tell people, who are getting into this lifestyle, like, make sure that like you really, and that's what I do with a lot of my clients, is I help them work through communication issues.
Mhm.
Because a lot of times that's when these things happen, and when partners leave other partners, or when there's a miscommunication in the swinger lifestyle and there's a mishap, while you're in a play session with somebody, it's usually because of communication. So building trust as a foundation is way, way more important than like getting your freak off on, right? Like they should have really had a good foundation before involving themselves in this lifestyle, and really like maybe gotten some sex therapy, maybe some relationship coaching. I mean, they had enough money, so it's not like, that was a factor, but really built that trust, because that's the foundation of any non-monogamous relationship, whether you're polyamorous, swinger, open relationship, it doesn't matter. It's foundational.
Well,
I,
their foundation is she was cheating on her boyfriend. I'm reading here that she admits to lying to the boyfriend, saying she showed him a flyer, said, "There's an event I'm going to." And that's when they first hooked up. She went, snuck off with him to go to Miami. So, again, this is why I have very little sympathy for Homegirl.
But again, if you knew that the biggest music mogul of the time period invited you to a party, I'm not gonna lie. If I was Cassie in 2008, 2007, or whenever this 2009, whenever this happened, I would have done the same thing, right? Like if you knew that the biggest, like he was so big at the time, I don't know how I would have reacted, because power dynamics are at play. I probably would have broken up with my partner first. But maybe she didn't know what was going to happen, or that he was going to like her back, or that there was some sort of
Oh, no, it was
pull.
Claire. That's why she lied.
I'm more interested in the men that took that Cassie deal. the male celebrities that said, "Oh, you know what? This is Diddy. I'm just gonna go and do what I have to do," because it's so many celebrities that's been attached to this. And so, like to answer what you were saying, Kylie, you were saying, "Oh, they could have went to sex therapy and things like this." I think celebrities are so afraid. Like I remember Nicki Minaj was getting a reward, and she was like, "Oh, I was having a panic attack, but I thought I was having a heart attack." But I wouldn't call 911 because I was scared of what they was gonna say on TMZ the next day. So I think that they're like so afraid of this stuff coming out, especially with what Diddy was doing. They probably definitely needed therapy. But if they would have called someone like you, they would have been like thinking, "Oh, this is gonna be on USA Today tomorrow." So like they're afraid to like because of their fame, pretty much.
Mhm. Yeah, and I have empathy for that, for real,
Yeah,
like, I really do. I can understand that when me and my partner were deciding to part ways, I was concerned because I'm this girl on social media telling and USA Today and all the newspapers telling everybody how amazing and great swinging is, and then me and my partner are about to break up because of other reasons, right? So, and this is on, like, a way smaller scale than them, right? So I
Mhm.
have empathy for that. Um, and I do understand that, like, and especially if we're talking about the time period, 2025, it's much different than what it was back then. Back then, it was even worse, right? Because, like, this is the time period where Britney Spears had her meltdown, and everybody, like, the paparazzi was at its height during that time. So
Mhm.
I can
True.
really have empathy for that, and that's actually a really, really good point. But it does really bring up a cultural conversation around, like, celebrities and how we view them and how we judge other people.
absolutely, absolutely. So do
Mm.
you feel like because I know some people are like more open like you and they'll put it on social media. Do you feel like if you were to go like to a party now, people that know you from the internet, people that are keeping it a secret, they wouldn't want to interact with you because of your status and how much influence you have in the space?
Absolutely, because unfortunately, swinging is not really destigmatized, and we see that with this case. We see a lot of people who are talking about it, especially on social media, who don't understand how consent works, don't really understand how swinging works, and so people are still very much not visibly swingers. It's still a very taboo subject. I think that we are gaining some momentum. Unfortunately, things like this kind of push us back into the swinger closet, so to speak. But I do think that, like, that's been a thing. I've been to parties where a lot of times, like, we'll be making content for social media with other swinger influencers or podcasters, and we're very, very careful about cameras being out there. Most clubs that I've been to or events, you can't even have your cell phone out. You can't even look at a text message while you're there because there's so many people who are so discreet. And that's the thing. People are still very, very discreet about this lifestyle. Whether you're a celebrity and person on the internet or not, or just and there are a lot of very regular people who do this.
Absolutely. Nora?
Um, I'm sorry, I'm just still reading, but I mean, the text messages today in the early stages, I mean, they were clearly listen, I can't speculate if he loved her, but it appears by his words he loved her. But I think a lot of this is drug fueled. I think he was addicted, and I think she was addicted to drugs. I think that's a big chunk of it from what I'm reading here. And again, he's not no innocent person to me. I'm not saying that, but you said you've been keeping up with what's going on with the trial. Kylie, what do you think is going to be the next move? Are they going to bring anybody else out, or is she going to be it?
I think that because there have been some other people who have come out and said that, like, there was a lot of manipulation and a lot of coercion, especially with the drugs and especially with the sexual abuse, the essay.
Mhm.
So I do think that they're also going to use some of their testimony. That would be my next, I think the next move, I think, would be not just Cassie, but like the other women who have come out. Because there have been, and when we look back on the past year, even on like social media, we've seen women who have said, I've been a victim of Diddy, I've been to
True.
one of his freak offs. I think that they might call some other celebrities up there who have influence, who've been, who were participants in this. I remember when all of this came out, people talking about Justin Bieber and that situation when he was very young. That
Bieber was taken in by him. That Bieber lived with Diddy at one point. So I'm curious what abuse he was subject to, because I really do feel bad for Justin Bieber. Now that I have empathy for him, because I believe he was subjected to a lot of abuse,
yeah.
and I believe it was at the hand him and Usher at the hands of.
Mm-hmm.
You were forgetting to say Usher, but Usher said that his mom let him go live with Diddy before his career, and Usher was just a young boy, and he seen things that he felt like he shouldn't be seeing at that age.
Mm-hmm.
So then Justin Bieber came after Usher. So Usher was on the Diddy wing, and then Justin Bieber was on the Usher wing. Then, of course, he met all the other people.
And it would have been around the same time period that all of this was going on, the late 2000s. Yeah.
Yeah, and they say that he knows a lot, that Justin Bieber knows a lot, that's part of why he turned to church, why he turned to God, why we see him crashing out right now. I do empathize with him. The other thing that we're not talking about with this is, are there going to be any other celebrities named? I'm curious. I mean, what was J Lo's connection to all of this? Is the swinging a new thing? Is it something he did with J Lo? The other thing is, that came out in the text messages, she texted him, Cassie, and said, "Why don't you call up Kim?" So Kim, I think Kim was a part of this, unfortunately. I heard, and even going back to Jaguar Wright, I hate to jump around, but she has been proven right. Everything she says, Kylie,
Yeah.
has been proven
Mm-hmm.
right. So now my mind is wondering, what are the other allegations against the celebrities like Jay-Z? And where is he in all of this? Kylie, you heard any tea on Jay-Z, where he is in all of this? Do you know?
I have a story about that, and I haven't told a lot of people this story. So I remember, and I'm still in sex work a little bit here and there, but this was like probably 3 years ago, and this gentleman, I was talking to him, and he told me he just moved back from LA, that he was trying to be a rapper out there, and he let me listen to his music. I knew it was him, like, and it was good music too, right? So I promise there's a good point to this story. So
Mhm.
he told me that the reason, I said, your music is great, like, you seem like you have it going on. Why are you back here in Cleveland? I'm from Cleveland. And he said that he could not get into the music industry without being a part of this shit. Okay. These parties. And now he told me this
Wow.
3 years ago, or yeah. So this would have been in 2022 that he told me
Uh-huh.
this. He told me about these parties. He said MGK, who is from Cleveland, was a part of that. That
Okay,
he,
yeah, and that's the baby daddy for that chick, the actress.
From
yeah.
Transformers. What's her name from Transformers?
Yeah, I can't think of her name.
Megan Fox.
Megan Fox. Megan
Megan
Fox.
Fox, and they just had a baby. Okay.
So he said that, he had a friend who had connections, and the friend looked at him and said, this is what you're going to have to do in order to like be initiated into this community, right? And in order to get your music on the radio, you're going to have to do some things that are against God. Are you okay with this? And this gentleman that I met was like, dude, my mom's like a devout Christian. Like I was raised Christian. Like,
Mm.
I'm not comfortable with
Mhm.
like and it was sex parties, and it was all of that sort of stuff
Wow.
he was telling me. So when all of this came out with the Diddy stuff last
Mhm.
year, I was like, oh my God. Cause I believed him because he said it with a lot of conviction, and
Right.
and it really, really seemed like he meant it. Um,
Mhm.
but again, you don't know. People, their minds get the best of them sometimes. So I do 100% believe now that he was telling me the truth.
I want to show this right here because Kylie, it does look like Oh, it does look like your people are coming out
My
with.
girl Yvonne, yay!
You heard about this?
I did, yeah. So I covered this actually yesterday on my social media. And it's so funny. She commented on my video about her and said, she was like, Kylie, thank you so much for covering this. Because I do a lot of swinger pop culture and a lot of swinger politics.
Wow.
And I cover a lot of that stuff. And so, like, I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited for you. So, I've been reading about it and seeing. So, for those who don't know, Yvonne Rohr, she's part of the Democratic, she's a delegate in Virginia. And essentially, she's running for office. And she came out to the I think the Huffington Post or Huff Post and said, we're swingers, and was totally open about it. I've never met Yvonne at a party or anything like that, but so then she said, "Well, we need to get the E&M community behind the funding because now I have a lot of people mad at me." And I'm like, "I got you, girl. We got this." Because I don't believe that what somebody does on the weekend in the bedroom affects their job, and her job
Agree.
is to make sure that like her community is taken care of and like she's making the best political decisions. Being a swinger doesn't affect that.
Kylie, you gotta get on the show because we mainly talk about politics. And I don't know if you guys know, but Roger Stone, who helped Donald Trump, he got caught at a swingers club as well.
But he
Right.
wasn't outward about it. And what I
Right,
love about Yvonne is that she got in front of
She's
it and
brave.
she said,
Mhm.
that is so, and especially as a
Mhm.
woman who's like, I enjoy pleasure, I like to have sex
Mhm.
with my husband. And the funniest part of it was she said that um her husband's parents were more upset about her being a Democrat than them being
That's funny. Ah, that's funny. That's funny. Well, yeah, they're mm, the biggest freaks are probably the repubs.
of
right.
honey, who do you think most of the swinger lifestyle is?
Oh
Yeah,
wow, wow.
rich Republicans. I
I
believe it.
argued with them in November because I'm like, y'all are voting against your own rights here, and they all argued back with me. I'm like, okay, well, they're banning porn now, so I'm you guys know what I mean. But I
Yeah,
think
yeah, well, I know what you mean. I get it. Yeah, because we talked about that last night, the banning the porn. Because here in Florida, it's not banned, but you have to provide an ID, so they're tracking it. So basically, there's no more privacy. I feel due to that law. Now, I have mixed feelings on should or shouldn't they. I really don't have a strong opinion. I'll be honest, I see pros and cons to both. The pros for me is our birth rate is down. Men sometimes are addicted to it. They're not having relations with their wives. I've heard multiple men tell me they were addicted and it ruined their marriage. That's the pros. The cons is the freedom. Like we're supposed to be free. That's a right. That's a freedom I feel that people should have the choice to want to watch and engage in. The other pro to me, I think the industry should be more regulated because I think it's very sometimes it's abusive to women and it should be more regulated. So I think there should be at least meet in the middle and regulate the industry versus, you know what I mean, like completely banning it.
I think OnlyFans have definitely gave women a much more control over their content. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
so that's probably the biggest thing. Kylie, we definitely have to bring you back for sure. I definitely want you to tell the Republicans on the cast like that is mainly Republican swinging. like, that'd be
Lord.
hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah, and by the way, I'm actually a libertarian,
Yeah,
and I talked about this last time.
yeah.
So Nora, I agree with you on, freedom. I think that, and I'm a proprietor, and I'm somebody who advocates for ethical porn. So I do
Yeah,
agree with
yeah,
you that like if it's
yeah.
done ethically, then like I support that 100%. Erica Lust, Aorta Films.
Yeah, and
There's
cleaning
so
up the kids, making sure the kid because it's a lot of kiddie porn out there, and that's my biggest corn out there. That's my biggest thing for it. So, but I don't think that we should be the country. Yeah, we can have like Christian values, and like I'm a personally a Christian, but I don't think that should be forced on anyone. That wasn't the foundation of our country. It wasn't founded on pushing and forcing, freedom of religion, the freedom to choose the life you want. So that's where I hard stop that I have to agree on.
Yeah. No, I agree with you 100%. Unfortunately, our from what I've learned in recent years, learning about, just history of how our country was founded, unfortunately, it was about pushing conservative Christian values onto people, who weren't necessarily of that. So I agree with you. I think that there should be a freedom of religion, and I think that yes, that's what we learned in school, of course, that that there's a freedom of religion, but and that our country was founded on that, but is that truly the case? I think that people should do a little bit more research on how our country was founded and the first Thanksgiving and all of that. I think that you'll learn that there's a dark history behind that, but we are moving back. And I think that it's a huge cultural conversation around. And I think that things like this, what's going on with Diddy, and we'll kind of go back to that, is like
True.
what's going on with this is this now gives men in power it gives them an excuse and it gives them a scapegoat to abuse women. Okay. And I'm not here to say if Cassie was abused, like I'm not part of the jury, I'm not part of that. That's for them to decide. But what I am here to say is that this is a broader cultural conversation around not only the swinger community and in kink culture, but around powerful men using scapegoats and using their power to coerce and abuse women and finding a way out of and being able to do that. And I foresee women struggling in the future with all of this.
For sure.
Well, this was great. I'm so glad Kylie could come. I'm gonna allow Kylie to say her closing thoughts and to let everybody know where we can follow her at.
Well, thank you guys for watching. It was so great to be here. I love talking politics. So, but you guys can find me on Instagram. I'm at the Pineapple Express podcast. I do also have a podcast where I talk about swinging and kink and non-monogamy and modern relationships, and that's the Pineapple Express podcast. That's on all podcast platforms, and you can find me on TikTok at Sexy Polly, Poly chick. And yeah, so thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate it, and it's been great.
For sure.
Gary, what's your closing thoughts?
I like that a Democrat like myself, a libertarian like Kylie, and Nora, independent, but actually a Republican pretending to be an independent, can come together
What?
and talk about politics, as well as two women and a guy can talk about things that are sexual in nature and it's educational and like it's actually helping people. So I like that about this, and that we were able to like talk about Diddy because that is like a huge case, but we were able to give like real educational stuff and stuff that affects people every day. And there's probably a lot of people that go to freak offs, and Diddy, even though this is horrible for him, he's created a conversation where maybe people can come out and not feel like they're going to be judged or feel ashamed to talk about it.
Oh, Lord. Okay, that was a whole lot. So, Kylie, I want to thank you so much for coming. As always, you're always giving an alternative, perspective and a new perspective for things. Because, hey, it's conversations like these that help us grow, right? And also, I am not a fake independent. I am truly independent because I have different views on things, and I've gotten attacked lately because I've been, I guess, more left leaning with things because these Republicans taking things a little too far. But anyways, I want to thank everyone for watching. If you are watching, please hit the like button. Hit the like button. Please go subscribe to Kylie Pineapple Express podcast. Definitely, she will give you more of her perspective on the alternative lifestyle. Maybe you're thinking about doing it and you want to learn more. Go check it out because these are conversations you can have with your partner. You guys can watch it together and learn and grow. Also, tonight we will be back on the new party at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have a Republican candidate, Chris Stevens, coming on. We will be interviewing him. And then we'll be closing talking about the economy, XRP, and Megan Thee Stallion and Tory Lane's case. So we will be doing that tonight. For everyone watching, we'll be back here tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And everyone have a nice, wonderful Thursday. Like we say on the new party, always vote.
Always vote.